Hi, and are you ready for the first step in our 8 steps to finding your voice? Now, this video is the first of 8 and it's going to be a little bit longer than the others because I want to do a bit of an introduction and a bit of a recap on some of the stuff I talked about in the welcome video. The first one being the most important thing for you to get the most out of this course, firstly, is to make time in your diary. So if you haven't done that, I really invite you to start putting some 10 or 15 minute slots, a little bit more if you can, up to half an hour every day into your diary. I did mention in the welcome video what can tend to happen. We don't make time on a daily basis and then it accumulates and we promise ourselves that we're going to make the time at the weekend and then something else comes in and it doesn't happen. So we're constantly in this world of catch up, which leads to overwhelm and stress. So I'm a massive believer over the 16 years that I've been a counsellor and also the years I've been working on my own personal development, that small consistent steps are what win the day over time. You know, avoiding these kind of having to spend hours on something which isn't sustainable. So from day one, you know, make life easy for yourself. Put the time for you in your calendar. That is going to be the biggest challenge that you'll face. That's my experience when I'm working with clients, is them making the time for themselves. And that's a really like, it's like a parallel process, isn't it? That's going to be running alongside you finding your voice and being more assertive. Putting time in your diary is actually the first step to being more assertive. So that's my first, how I want to start this video today. Make time for you. So before I go on to the first step, there's a link in the post attached to this video, and you'll go into that link. The first page of the link is talking about the different behaviour types, because I don't want to make any assumptions that you are all aware of the 4 main behaviour types. So there's a little bit of information in there. Have a read of it if you're not familiar with the 4 behaviour types. If you are, then you can scroll to the bottom and click on the first step. But I just wanted to put a little bit of theory in there for you in case you weren't familiar with the different behaviour types, which are passive. You know, we can all relate to being passive, you know, a bit stuck in the victim place where we feel unable to do and think for ourselves. It's the kind of poor me place. You know, certainly those that don't express themselves tend to be more in the passive camp. Passive people moan a lot. So have a read of the passive passage, you know, familiarise yourself with some of the characteristics of being in a passive state. Okay, we've then got assertive, which is of course what we're going to be exploring over the next 4 weeks. So being able to respectfully stand up for yourself, but also being mindful of the rights of other people. Then we move into the aggressive, and we've got 2 parts to the aggressive. The overbearing aggressive, as in angry and controlling, but we also have the indirect aggressive, or passive aggressive as some people call it, which is more manipulative and sarcastic. So they're the 4 key behaviour types that as humans we tend to slip into at any given time, and we all have a bit of all of that in us. But I'm guessing you're signing up to this course because you tend to err more on the passive camp. And we all know that when you don't speak your truth, when you don't set yourself boundaries and other people boundaries, it can start to build up inside us, and that's when we tend to pop over to the more aggressive side. And for those of you who aren't outwardly aggressive, i.e. shout and scream, you might fall more into the sort of manipulative and sulky camp. So we can all relate to these behaviours in us. So the first page is just a little bit of theory for you. So have a read of that, familiarise yourself with that. If you already know it, great, just bypass it. Scroll on down, have a little read of the first step, and then click on the link into step 1. Step one is all about helping you to develop an awareness of your needs. Somebody who's naturally assertive is having their needs met. As children, it's really important that we have strong role models and loving relationships. Without them, it's really unlikely that we are going to grow up into assertive adults. Unassertiveness is based on feelings of mistrust, self-doubt, shame, guilt, inferiority, complex. So if you can relate to some of those things, you know, you're in the right place. The great news is you have the power to change it. So let's get started. Are your emotional needs being met? The truth is they're probably not. The truth is most of us don't even think about this stuff. We just drift through our lives, not considering why we feel and behave the way that we do. So step one is about you starting to look at your emotional needs. And there are 8 core emotional needs. And in this step, you're going to take a deeper look at them. I can hear some of you saying already, you know, this is one of those tasks that is going to get you to start looking behind what is really going on. Now, as we go through the 8 steps, of course, some of those steps are going to be about action steps. So how you can move from where you are at the moment to being more assertive. And there are going to be action steps. But also, you know, we need to kind of look at it from a different perspective as well. We need to look at what's going on behind the non-assertiveness. So I can give you lots of tools that are going to help you to become more assertive, but you also need to look a little bit behind why you're not already assertive. And that's where there's lots of learning that could be had. And the first step, and looking at emotional needs, is the first step to kind of daring to peek behind the curtain a little bit. We are all emotional beings, albeit we've kind of become thinking beings. And so it's no surprise that we exclude our emotional needs. So there are 8 core emotional needs, and I'm going to go through them all. And excuse me, there's going to be a sequence of questions for you to answer relating to yourself and relating to the 8 core emotional needs. So the first one is security. This links into anyone who's looked at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You'll see that safety and security are pretty much at the bottom. And without that, it's really hard to develop up the pyramid of needs. So the first core emotional need is security. So the first question is getting you to look at, where do you feel safe, or where do you or don't you feel safe in your life? And this isn't just physical safety. Okay, that's just one aspect of safety. This is emotional safety as well. So that's the first thing I want you to think about. Where in your lives do you feel physically, emotionally and mentally safe or unsafe? Okay, you'd be surprised. So the second one, the second core emotional need, is attention. Where in your lives are you getting or not getting the attention that you crave? I work with lots of clients, and quite often they'll say to me they feel invisible in their lives. They don't feel they're getting the attention and recognition that they crave, and that has an impact. So I want you to consider that and be as honest as you can be. This is the thing about, you know, this course. The more honest you can be, the more you're going to get out of this program. And it's a thing, isn't it? To actually dare to open your heart and to talk openly about how you're really feeling is a big thing to do. You know, part of being passive is we hide this stuff. We pretend it's not going on. But of course, what's happening, we don't ask for our needs to be met. So we kind of just stay in this bubble of invisibility and frustration because we're scared of being able to open up and ask for what we need. So the more honest you can be as you answer these questions, and you don't have to share. If you feel brave enough to come and share in the group, fantastic. But learning to be really honest with yourself is awesome, because it means you can then start to fix what's really going on. Sorry, I digressed a little bit there. So the first core emotional need is safety and security. So think about that. The second one is about attention. Where are you getting or not getting the attention and from whom in your life, and what is the impact of that? The third one is emotional connection. You know, we are emotional beings and we need connection. You know, the internet and social media is wonderful, but we are losing actual connection. It's the easiest time ever to be able to connect with people, but the way in which we're doing it is quite superficial. So we're losing this emotional connection with the people in our lives. We're busier than ever, so the time we have to come and connect gets limited. So think about the emotional connections in your life. Where are they lacking? Partners, friends, family. And what is the impact of a lack of emotional connection in your life? The next one is connection to the outer world. Again, it's important that we have connection to those that are closest to us. But again, as humans, we need connection to the outer world. Interestingly, over the last few years, I've realised how isolated and insular my life has come. I run my counselling practice from home. I work online. So the time I spend connecting with the outer world has got smaller and smaller. I used to be such a social person, always going out, always connecting with people for coffee and lunch and things like that. And it helped to make me feel really buoyant in my life. And that's started to dwindle over the years, and it's only been in the last few months I've realised that started to happen and the impact that's been having on my life. So I invite you to think about, where are you in terms of connection to the wider world, and what's the impact of that if it's not happening for you at the moment. The fifth one is privacy. Okay, so this is related to time and space to reflect. How often do you give yourself time and space to think about what's going on in your life? And it's only when we can create this time and space that we can start to realise what's going on and what areas of our life need to change. Being busy all of the time has become a really modern problem. It's like a badge of honour that we wear, that being busy is in some way recognised and approved of. But equally, what is the impact of being busy all the time and not taking time out to slow your world down, to time to reflect and have some private time to consider your own thoughts, your own purpose, your own destiny? So give some consideration to this one. Number 6 is a sense of competence and status. Really important, this one. Do you feel like you have a value in your life? Value and purpose are really important parts of being human. So have a think about where you stand on where your purpose is in life and where your value is. And again, these questions are kind of a benchmark for you. As you go through some of these, if you can't connect to some of them, you're thinking, God, I don't have that. It's a real invitation to beat yourself up about that and feel bad about it. But try to flip that and try to think, I'm gaining all of this new awareness of where there are needs that are lacking in my life. This whole course, you're on this course because there are some emotional needs that are not being met. And so this exercise is about starting to bring that into awareness. And once it's in awareness, that's when you can start to do something about it. I think it's one of the reasons why we hide from doing stuff like this, because we don't want to face the lack in our life. But it's only when we can, and we can look at it with curiosity and bravery, can we start to put the relevant steps in place to make positive change. So that's number 6. Number 7 is a sense of achievement. Okay, so where in your life do you feel a sense of achievement? Achievement is really important for maintaining self-esteem. And when we have a buoyant self-esteem, we're more likely to find our voice and be assertive in our lives. When our self-esteem is low, that's a real invitation to stay in the passive, fearful, frightened camp. And the last need is meaning and purpose, so that you feel a sense of accomplishment and of value. Those last 3 needs are quite closely linked, and there's a little bit more of an explanation in the link. So that's today's activity. First, so that's the step 1 activity. Take some time. Don't rush into this. Don't just go with your first answer. write down your first answer, but then take some time to think more deeply. You know, give yourself time and permission, practice that privacy step, a bit of quiet time, a bit of time and space to actually really connect with these emotional needs on a deeper level. If you're struggling and you can't relate to this, come into the group, talk about it so we can all come in and share our experiences. I will be answering these questions as well, so I'll be putting my thoughts in of all of these. I know there's some areas with regards to emotional needs that aren't being met in my life at the moment, and once you've got that awareness of it, that's when you can start to do something about it. So enjoy today's task. I know it can really touch that emotional part and that hidden self. Apologies for the break there. A phone call come in. I forgot to put my phone on flight mode. Lesson learned. So yeah, I was just talking about the hidden self. Anyone's familiar with de Harry's window? We have 4 panes of self. We have the open self. So the things that we're happy for people to see about us. We have the blind self. So these are things that people see in us, but we don't often see in ourselves, often all the good bits. We have an unknown self. I don't know it, you don't know it, but we also have this hidden self. So all the things that we know to be true about ourselves, but we keep them hidden for fear of judgment or of disconnect in our lives. So this task, this emotional needs task, is going to really invite you to delve into your hidden self and to bring them more into the open self. Once you can start to stand in your truth and what's really going on in your life and look at it with curiosity and bravery and not judgment, that's when real change can happen. So enjoy today's step. I'm really looking forward to your feedback on this one and how you're getting on. Come and put your comments in the group, because I can then interact with you and delve a little bit deeper, and that's when the real magic can happen. Enjoy!